need blood.
Not without consent or a warrant.
I don't need either.
Yes, you do. Step aside.
I'm protecting my patient.
Then turn around.
For following the
You're
law?
under arrest.
Hold on! Alex, what's going
Wait,
on?
hey, stop!
Hands behind your
You're
back.
hurting me.
Jeff, stop! Someone call security!
The hospital security cameras captured everything. Detective Jeff Payne walked through the emergency room doors at University of Utah Hospital with the confidence of a man who believed his badge meant he could do whatever he wanted. He was there to draw blood from an unconscious patient, a patient who couldn't consent, a patient protected by federal law, hospital policy, and basic human rights. Nurse Alex stood between him and that patient. She was 5 feet 4 inches, blonde, soft-spoken, a former Olympic skier who dedicated her life to protecting patients. She had the hospital's blood draw policy printed out. She had her supervisor on speakerphone. She had the law on her side. Detective Payne had a pair of handcuffs and 9 years of believing that nobody ever told him no. What happened next, caught on multiple body cameras and hospital security footage, would shock the nation. A nurse doing her job, following the law, protecting an unconscious patient, violently arrested and dragged screaming from the hospital. The footage would go viral. 87 million views in 3 days. It would end careers, trigger federal investigations, result in a $500,000 settlement, and expose a pattern of police misconduct that had been ignored for years. But in that moment, as Detective Payne reached for his handcuffs, Alex had no idea she was about to become the face of a national conversation about police accountability. She just knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would not let this detective violate her patient's rights, no matter what it cost her. Before we dive deeper into this absolutely shocking story, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from, your country, your state, wherever you are. And if you believe in holding authority figures accountable when they abuse their power, hit that subscribe button. William Gray was 43 years old, a reserve police officer from Rigby, Idaho, and a long-haul truck driver. On July 26, 2017, he was driving his semi-truck on Highway 89 in Cache County, Utah, doing everything right. Seatbelt on, speed limit observed, focus on the road. He never saw the car coming. A suspect fleeing from police in a high-speed chase crossed the center line at 110 miles per hour and hit Gray's truck head-on. The impact was catastrophic. The fleeing suspect died instantly. Gray's truck burst into flames. Utah Highway Patrol troopers pulled Gray from the burning wreckage. He was unconscious, severely burned, multiple broken bones, head trauma. Life Flight helicopter rushed him to University of Utah Hospital's burn unit. He arrived in critical condition, unconscious, fighting for his life. He would remain in a medically induced coma for weeks. Gray was a victim, an innocent man nearly killed by a criminal fleeing police. The crash wasn't his fault. He hadn't broken any laws. He was a reserve officer himself, a public servant, now lying in a hospital bed clinging to life. But Detective Jeff Payne didn't see a victim. He saw an opportunity to get evidence, regardless of the law, regardless of ethics, regardless of that unconscious man's rights. Detective Jeff Payne had been with the Salt Lake City Police Department for 9 years. He worked in the department's Gold Cross unit, an ambulance service operated by the police. His job put him in regular contact with hospitals, medical staff, and patients. He should have known hospital policies. He should have understood medical privacy laws. He should have respected patient rights. Instead, Payne had developed a reputation among hospital staff as aggressive, demanding, and dismissive of policies that interfered with what he wanted. Several nurses had complained about his behavior before. Those complaints went nowhere. On July 26, 2017, Payne received orders from his supervisor to go to University of Utah Hospital and draw blood from William Gray. The police department wanted to test Gray's blood, supposedly to rule him out as a contributor to the accident. But Gray was the victim. He was unconscious. He couldn't consent. And police already knew from witness statements and highway patrol reports that Gray wasn't at fault. The real reason police wanted Gray's blood had nothing to do with the investigation. They wanted to protect themselves from a potential lawsuit. If Gray's family sued over the crash, police wanted evidence they could use to blame him. Even though he was a victim, Payne knew the request was legally questionable. He knew hospital policy required one of three things for a blood draw: patient consent, a warrant, or the patient being under arrest. Gray was unconscious, so no consent. Police had no warrant. Gray wasn't under arrest because he hadn't committed a crime. Payne went to hospital anyway, convinced he could intimidate the medical staff into compliance. Alex was 37 years old, a registered nurse in the burn unit at University of Utah Hospital. She'd been a nurse for over a decade, dedicated to her patients, meticulous about following policies and protecting patient rights. Before nursing, she'd been a competitive alpine skier, representing the United States in the 2002 Winter Olympics. She understood pressure, discipline, and standing your ground. On July 26, 2017, Alex was working as a charge nurse in the burn unit. William Gray was her patient. Unconscious, critically injured, completely vulnerable. Protecting him was her job, her legal responsibility, and her moral obligation. When Detective Payne arrived demanding to draw Gray's blood, Alex knew immediately it was wrong. She pulled up the hospital's blood draw policy, the agreement the hospital had worked out with Salt Lake City Police Department. The policy was clear. Police could only draw blood in three circumstances: valid consent from the patient, a legal warrant, or the patient being under arrest. Gray met none of those conditions. Alex explained this to Detective Payne calmly, professionally. She even had her supervisor, nursing manager Catherine Strachan, on speakerphone to back her up. She offered to have hospital administration speak with him. She was doing everything right. Payne's response shocked her. He didn't care about policy. He didn't care about the law. He wanted that blood draw, and he expected Alex to comply simply because he was a police officer. The body camera footage shows Alex standing in the hospital hallway, phone in one hand with her supervisor on speaker, the hospital's blood draw policy in the other hand. She's calm, professional, speaking in the measured tone of someone who deals with difficult situations regularly. Detective Payne towers over her, his body language aggressive, leaning into her space. His voice carries the edge of someone accustomed to intimidating people into submission. "I'm here to draw blood from a patient in room 847. Payne says. Alex responds gently but firmly. "I need to make sure you're aware of our policy. We can't allow a blood draw unless you have the patient's consent, a warrant, or the patient is under arrest." Payne's jaw tightens. "I don't need consent. I'm a police detective." "I understand, sir, but the patient is unconscious. He can't give consent. And according to our policy in federal law, we need one of those three things." From the phone speaker, Supervisor Catherine Strachan's voice adds, "Detective, this policy was created in cooperation with your department. This isn't something we're making up. This is the agreement." Payne ignores her. He looks at Alex with barely concealed contempt. "Are you refusing to let me do my job?" "I'm not refusing anything. I'm explaining our policy and asking you to follow proper procedure. If you can get a warrant or supervisor approval following proper channels, we'll absolutely cooperate. I don't need a warrant. I have implied consent." Alex shakes her head slightly. "That's not how implied consent works. The patient is unconscious from injuries caused by someone else. He's not suspected of crime. Implied consent doesn't apply here." The conversation continues for several minutes, Alex remaining calm while Payne becomes increasingly agitated. Detective Payne realizes Alex won't be intimidated by him alone. He calls for backup. Within minutes, his lieutenant arrives. Lieutenant Tracy, older, more experienced, should be the voice of reason that de-escalates the situation. Instead, Tracy sides immediately with Payne. He doesn't review the policy. He doesn't listen to the supervisor on speakerphone. He doesn't consider whether the blood draw is legal. He just sees a nurse refusing to comply with police, and in his mind, that's insubordination. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step aside and let us do our job," Tracy says. Alex stands her ground. "Sir, I'm doing my job. My job is to protect my patients. This patient cannot consent. You don't have a warrant. He's not under arrest. Under federal HIPAA law and our hospital policy, I cannot allow this blood draw." Tracy's expression hardens. "If you don't comply, there will be consequences." "I understand that, but I have to follow the law. I'm protecting my patient's rights." Hospital security supervisor Scott Freitag has arrived now, standing near Alex, watching the situation escalate. Hospital attorney Jake Mackey has been contacted and is on his way. Everyone can sense this is spiraling towards something bad. Payne pulls Tracy aside. The body camera captures their conversation. She's not going to let us draw the blood. Payne says, "We need to bring her down to the office. I want her in handcuffs." Tracy nods. "Do it." Those two words seal Alex's fate and end multiple careers. What happens next is captured on multiple cameras. Detective Payne walks back to Alex with a determined stride. No more arguing. No more discussion. He's made his decision. "You're under arrest," he says. Alex's eyes widen in shock. "What? For what?" "Interfering with a police investigation." "I'm not interfering. I'm following hospital policy and federal law. I have my supervisor on the phone. Please talk to our administrators." Payne reaches for her. Alex backs away, still holding the phone, her voice rising in distress. "Sir, I'm just trying to do my job. Please don't do this." Payne grabs her arm. Alex pulls back instinctively, not resisting violently, just a natural human response to being grabbed. Payne uses her reflexive pullback as justification for more force. He grabs both her arms, twists her around, and slams her face first against the wall. Alex screams. It's not a scream of anger or defiance. It's a scream of terror and confusion. "Help! Help me! Somebody help me!" Hospital staff freeze, watching in horror. Several try to intervene verbally. She didn't do anything wrong. She's following hospital policy. You can't arrest her for this. Payne ignores them all. He wrenches Alex's arms behind her back and snaps on handcuffs, deliberately tight. Alex is crying now, sobbing, still begging someone to help her, to stop this from happening. Payne drags Alex through the hospital hallway toward the exit. She's still in her scrubs, still crying, trying to understand what's happening. Other nurses watch in shock. Doctors stand frozen. Security Officer Freitag follows, filming on his phone, documenting everything. "This is crazy. I'm just doing my job. I was just trying to protect my patient." Alex's voice echoes through the hallway. Payne says nothing. He's committed now. He pulls her outside to the patrol car in the hospital parking lot. The body camera shows Alex pleading with him. "Please tell me what I did wrong. I was following the policy. I was protecting my patient." Payne opens the back door of his patrol car. Alex refuses to get in, not physically resisting, but verbally protesting. "I need to know what I'm being charged with. What did I do?" "You interfere with a police investigation." "How?" "By following hospital policy, by following federal law." Payne tries to force her into the car. Alex braces against the door frame, still crying, still protesting. After several attempts, Payne gives up on putting her inside. Instead, he leaves her standing there, handcuffed, in the parking lot, while he consults with his lieutenant again. The body camera captures their conversation. Tracy asks, "What are you charging her with?" Payne hesitates. "Interfering? Obstructing? You got probable cause for that." Payne doesn't answer directly. Both men know the arrest is legally questionable, but neither wants to back down now. After 20 minutes in handcuffs in the hospital parking lot, humiliated and terrified, Alex is released. Payne uncuffs her without explanation, without apology. He just removes the handcuffs and walks away, leaving Alex standing there trembling, her wrists red and bruised. Alex walks back into the hospital in shock. Her colleagues surround her, offering support, expressing outrage. Several witness the entire incident. Security Supervisor Freitag has it all on video. Nursing Supervisor Strachan heard everything over the phone. The hospital administrators arrive. They review the footage. They pull up the policy. They contact the hospital's legal team. Everyone agrees on one thing. What Detective Payne did was completely illegal. The University of Utah Police Department, which has jurisdiction over the hospital, is notified. Their officers arrive and review the situation. They're horrified. One of their officers would never have made such an arrest. The blood draw request was clearly illegal. Alex had done everything right. Alex goes home that night physically fine, but emotionally devastated. She can't stop shaking. She keeps replaying the moment Payne grabbed her, slammed her against the wall, handcuffed her in front of her colleagues and patients. The humiliation, the fear, the complete violation of her rights while she was trying to protect someone else's rights. She doesn't know it yet, but the hospital security footage and body camera recordings are about to change her life again. 3 weeks pass. Alex tries to return to normal. She goes back to work, takes care of her patients, tries to forget what happened. The hospital has assured her they're handling it internally. Salt Lake City Police Department has been notified. Everyone tells her it will be dealt with appropriately. But nothing happens. No apology from the police department. No disciplinary action against Payne. No acknowledgement that anything wrong occurred. The police department is hoping the incident will quietly disappear. Alex's attorney, Kara Porter, has different ideas. Porter reviews all the footage, hospital security cameras, Detective Payne's body camera, security officer Freitag's phone video. The evidence is overwhelming. A nurse doing her job, following the law, protecting a patient, violently arrested for refusing to break federal law. On August 31st, 2017, Porter releases the footage publicly. The video hits social media and news outlets simultaneously. Within hours, it's everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, national news networks. The footage of Alex being dragged screaming from the hospital, crying and begging for help while simply trying to protect an unconscious patient, strikes a nerve. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Nurses across America share the video, expressing solidarity and outrage. Civil rights organizations call for investigations. Legal experts appear on news shows explaining exactly how illegal Detective Payne's actions were. The story goes viral in ways few police misconduct cases ever do. Within 24 hours, the video has 10 million views. Within 72 hours, 87 million. It becomes one of the most watched police misconduct videos in history. The national reaction is swift and furious. Nursing organizations across the country issue statements supporting Alex and condemning the arrest. The American Nurses Association calls it a gross violation of patient rights and nurse safety. State nursing boards express outrage that a nurse following the law was criminalized for doing her job. Legal experts line up to explain how clearly illegal the arrest was. Constitutional law professors appear on news, shows detail in the violations. False arrest, assault, violation of the Fourth Amendment, violation of HIPAA, violation of hospital policy. Every legal analyst agrees. Alex was completely in the right, and Detective Payne committed multiple crimes. The public response is even stronger. Comment sections fill with thousands of messages supporting Alex. Many are from nurses sharing their own stories of being pressured or intimidated by police demanding they violate patient privacy laws. The video resonates because it captures something many medical professionals have experienced. Law enforcement officers who believe their badge means medical ethics, and federal laws don't apply to them. Salt Lake City Mayor Jackie Biskupski is forced to respond. She releases a statement calling the incident completely unacceptable and promising a full investigation. Police Chief Mike Brown issues an apology, saying the arrest should never have happened and that Detective Payne's actions were not consistent with our training. But Alex wants more than apologies. She wants accountability. She wants to make sure no other nurse is ever put in this position again. The Salt Lake City Police Department launches an internal investigation, but they're not the only ones. The FBI opens a civil rights investigation. The Utah Department of Public Safety begins reviewing the department's policies. The University of Utah Hospital conducts its own review of what happened and why hospital security couldn't stop it. The internal investigation reveals disturbing information. This wasn't Detective Payne's first incident of misconduct. Multiple hospital staff had complained about his aggressive behavior before. Nurses reported feeling intimidated by him. Other detectives had raised concerns about his approach to obtaining medical records. All those complaints had been ignored or dismissed. Payne had never faced discipline. His supervisors had never addressed his pattern of disregarding medical privacy laws and hospital policies. The department had created an environment where Payne believed he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. Lieutenant Tracy's role becomes clear, too. He didn't just support Payne's illegal arrest. He actively encouraged it. The body camera footage shows Tracy telling Payne to arrest Alex when she wouldn't comply. Tracy never asked if the blood draw was legal. He never reviewed the policy. He just backed his detective against a nurse he viewed as being insubordinate to police authority. The investigation also uncovers the real reason police wanted William Gray's blood. Internal emails reveal supervisors explicitly discussing using Gray's blood to protect the department from liability in the crash that nearly killed him. They wanted evidence they could use to blame the victim if he or his family sued. It was never about the investigation. It was about covering themselves at the expense of an unconscious man's rights. As investigators dig deeper, they discover Detective Payne's misconduct with medical privacy wasn't an isolated incident. Over the previous 3 years, Payne had obtained blood draws from patients in legally questionable circumstances at least a dozen times. Most were unconscious patients who couldn't consent. None involved warrants. In most of those cases, nurses and doctors had raised objections. Some had questioned whether the blood draws were legal, but Payne had bullied them into compliance. He would get aggressive, threaten them with obstruction charges, or claim he had legal authority he didn't actually have. Medical staff, not wanting to be arrested like Alex was, would eventually give in. The only difference with Alex was that she didn't give in. She stood her ground, even when threatened. Even when her supervisor backed her up, Payne couldn't intimidate her into violating her patient's rights. So he arrested her. The pattern reveals something worse than one bad arrest. It shows systematic disregard for constitutional rights, medical privacy laws, and patient protection. It shows a detective who spent years violating people's rights, and a department that enabled him by ignoring complaints and providing no oversight. Hospital attorneys pull records showing at least 15 other blood draws Payne performed that likely violated policy. Each one represents a patient whose rights were violated, a medical professional who was intimidated, and a department that looked the other way. On September 12, 2017, Salt Lake City Police Chief Mike Brown announces the results of the internal investigation. Detective Jeff Payne is fired, effective immediately. Lieutenant James is demoted and removed from supervisory duties. The announcement comes at a press conference where Chief Brown appears visibly shaken. What happened to Nurse Wubbles was completely unacceptable and inexcusable, he says. Detective Payne violated our policies, our training, and most importantly, Nurse Wubbles' rights. His actions do not represent this department's values, but the discipline feels inadequate to many. Payne is fired, but he's not facing criminal charges yet. Tracy is demoted but keeps his job. Other supervisors who ignore complaints about Payne face no consequences at all. The police union immediately announces they will fight the terminations. They claim Payne was following orders and doing what his supervisors told him to do. They argue the department is scapegoating individual officers instead of taking responsibility for systemic problems. The union's defense only makes things worse. They're essentially arguing that following illegal orders justifies committing crimes. Legal experts point out that just following orders hasn't been a valid defense since the Nuremberg trials. Alex watches the press conference from home. She feels some vindication seeing Payne fired, but she knows this isn't over. She wants more than departmental discipline. She wants federal accountability. She wants to make sure this never happens to another nurse. Her attorney, Kara Porter, is already preparing the next step. On October 31st, 2017, Alex files a federal civil rights lawsuit against Detective Payne, Lieutenant Tracy, and Salt Lake City. The lawsuit alleges false arrest, assault, battery, violation of the Fourth Amendment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The complaint details everything: Payne's illegal demand for blood without consent or warrant, Alex's repeated attempts to explain the policy and offer alternatives, Payne's decision to arrest her rather than follow legal procedure, Tracy's support for the illegal arrest, and the department's failure to properly train and supervise its officers. The lawsuit includes one particularly damaging piece of evidence: body camera footage of Payne and Tracy discussing how to bring her down to the office and put her in handcuffs before ever telling Alex she was under arrest. The footage proves the arrest wasn't a response to Alex's behavior. It was a planned punishment for refusing to break the law. The city's initial response is defensive. Their attorneys argue Payne was acting in good faith, following what he believed were proper procedures. They claim qualified immunity should protect him from liability. But the evidence is too clear. Multiple legal experts file affidavits stating that no reasonable police officer could believe the arrest was lawful. The hospital policy was clear. Federal law was clear. Alex provided multiple opportunities for Payne to follow proper procedure. There was no good faith here, just abuse of authority. Salt Lake City's attorneys realize they're going to lose badly if this goes to trial. A jury watching that footage of Alex being dragged screaming from a hospital for protecting a patient would award damages that could bankrupt the city. Settlement negotiations begin. While the civil lawsuit proceeds, federal prosecutors review the case for potential criminal charges. The FBI's civil rights investigation has gathered extensive evidence. Witness interviews, body camera footage, hospital records, internal police emails. Everything points to clear criminal behavior. On November 1st, 2017, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Utah announces Detective Jeff Payne is under federal criminal investigation for deprivation of rights under color of law, a felony that carries up to 10 years in prison. The criminal investigation focuses not just on Alex's arrest, but on the pattern of illegal blood draws Payne performed over 3 years. Each illegal blood draw is a potential felony charge. Each patient whose rights were violated is a victim. The case is building toward multiple federal charges. Payne hires a prominent criminal defense attorney who immediately begins trying to negotiate a plea deal. The attorney knows the evidence is overwhelming. The body camera footage alone proves Payne arrested Alex for refusing to break the law. The emails prove the blood draw was never about a legitimate investigation. Payne has no viable defense. But federal prosecutors are hesitant to offer a deal that looks too lenient. The case has national attention. Nurses across America are watching to see if a detective who violently arrested a nurse for protecting patient rights will face real consequences. The pressure is on to send a message that police officers aren't above a law they're sworn to enforce. As 2017 ends, the criminal case remains open, the investigation ongoing, Payne's future uncertain. On November 1st, 2018, exactly 1 year after filing her lawsuit, Alex reaches a settlement with Salt Lake City. The city agrees to pay Alex $500,000 to resolve all claims against the city, Detective Payne, and Lieutenant Tracy. The settlement includes more than money. Salt Lake City agrees to implement new policies for police interaction with medical facilities. Officers will receive mandatory training on medical privacy laws, HIPAA regulations, and patient rights. The police department will create a specific protocol for requesting blood draws that requires supervisory approval and verification of legal authority before any request is made. The department also agrees to discipline reform. Complaints against officers, especially patterns of similar complaints, must be investigated thoroughly. Supervisors who ignore complaints will face consequences. The days of brushing aside concerns about officer behavior are supposed to be over. At the press conference announcing the settlement, Alex stands with her attorney and makes a brief statement. She's composed, professional, but the emotion is clear in her voice. "I didn't do this for money," she says. "I did this because what happened to me was wrong, and I want to make sure it never happens to another nurse who's just trying to protect their patient." Nurses should not have to fear being arrested for following the law and doing their jobs. Patients should not have their rights violated because police officers think their badge means they don't have to follow proper procedures. She pauses, gathering herself. "I hope this settlement and these policy changes mean something. I hope they actually protect the next nurse who has to stand up to an officer demanding something illegal, because that nurse shouldn't have to go through what I went through." The settlement makes headlines, but many feel it's not enough. On January 4th, 2019, federal prosecutors announced their decision on criminal charges against Detective Payne. After a lengthy investigation, they declined to file federal charges. The official statement says that while Payne's conduct was deeply concerning and violated departmental policy, prosecutors don't believe they can prove criminal intent beyond a reasonable doubt. The decision outrages Alex's supporters. Nurses' organizations issue statements condemning the decision. Civil rights groups argue that if this case, with its overwhelming evidence and clear violations, doesn't warrant criminal charges, then police will never face consequences for civil rights violations. Legal experts are divided. Some argue prosecutors made the right call because proving criminal intent in a false arrest case is extremely difficult. Others say prosecutors simply didn't want to prosecute a police officer, a common problem in civil rights cases. However, the state of Utah isn't finished. The Utah Attorney General's office announces it will pursue state criminal charges. In March 2019, state prosecutors filed misdemeanor assault and battery charges against Payne related to his physical handling of Alex during the arrest. The charges are disappointing to many. Misdemeanors, not felonies, but at least it's something. At least Payne will face some criminal accountability. Payne's attorney negotiates a plea deal. Payne pleads no contest to one count of assault, receives a suspended sentence, and agrees to complete anger management counseling. He also agrees never to work in law enforcement again in Utah. It feels like a slap on the wrist for what Payne did, but Alex accepts it as better than nothing. Life slowly returns to normal for Alex, though she'll never forget what happened. She continues working as a nurse at University of Utah Hospital, still in the burn unit, still protecting her patients. Her colleagues treat her as a hero. Patients thank her for standing up for their rights. But the incident left scars. Alex develops anxiety around police officers. She has nightmares about being arrested again. She goes through months of therapy to process the trauma of being violently arrested while doing her job. She uses part of her settlement money to establish a fund supporting nurses who face legal or professional consequences for protecting patient rights. She speaks at nursing conferences about patient advocacy and standing up to improper pressure from law enforcement. She becomes an advocate for stronger legal protections for medical professionals who enforce patient privacy laws. Detective Jeff Payne's life takes a different trajectory. Fired from Salt Lake City Police, barred from law enforcement in Utah, he moves out of state. He works various security jobs but struggles to find steady employment. His name is permanently associated with a viral video of him dragging a screaming nurse from a hospital. Lieutenant James retires from a police department in 2019. His career permanently damaged by his role in the incident. The policies Salt Lake City implemented after the settlement actually make a difference. Police requests for medical information and blood draws drop dramatically. When requests are made, they follow proper legal procedures. Nurses report feeling more supported when they enforce patient privacy rights. Other hospitals across the country update their own policies, using Alex's case as a cautionary tale and a blueprint for protecting staff who protect patients. 5 years later, Alex, arrest remains one of the most watched and discussed police misconduct cases in modern history. The video has been viewed over 200 million times. It's used in police academies as an example of how not to conduct law enforcement. It's taught in nursing schools as an example of patient advocacy and professional courage. The case sparked broader conversations about police accountability, qualified immunity, and how law enforcement interacts with other professionals who have legal and ethical obligations that sometimes conflict with police demands. Medical privacy advocates point to Alex's case as proof that patient rights protections need stronger enforcement mechanisms. For Alex personally, the case defined her in ways she never wanted. She didn't set out to become a national figure or a symbol of resistance to police overreach. She just wanted to protect her patient and do her job correctly. But when forced to choose between her professional obligations and an officer's illegal demands, she chose her patient, and she paid a price for it. The final irony is that the blood draw Detective Payne demanded so aggressively was completely unnecessary. William Gray, the unconscious patient Alex was protecting, recovered from his injuries. The police investigation concluded exactly what witnesses had said from the beginning. Gray was completely innocent, a victim of a fleeing suspect who crossed into his lane. Gray's blood would have proven nothing except what everyone already knew. Payne tried to arrest Alex and violated Gray's rights for nothing, for a blood test that served no legitimate law enforcement purpose and would have provided no useful evidence. He destroyed his career, traumatized a dedicated nurse, triggered national outrage, cost the city $500,000, and violated an unconscious man's constitutional rights, all for a blood test that was never needed in the first place. That's the final lesson of Alex's case. When police believe their authority overrides everyone else's rights, when they refuse to follow proper procedures because compliance would be inconvenient, when they punish people for standing up for what's legally and morally right, everyone loses. Justice loses. Trust loses. And the people they're supposed to protect lose most of all. Alex stood her ground that day. She protected her patient. She followed the law. And because of her courage, thousands of other nurses know they can do the same. That's the real victory in this story. Not the settlement money, not the disciplinary actions, but the precedent Alex set. Medical professionals can and should stand up to improper law enforcement pressure, even when it's scary, even when it costs them, because protecting patient rights is worth the fight.